Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call. I was sitting at my desk, staring at my computer screen, the numbers on the quarterly reports blending together as I tried to make sense of them. My mind was foggy, distracted. I was running a hospitality empire now. 3 hotels, 2 event spaces, a few restaurants. It was a lot, and lately, it felt like I was drowning in it all. Just as I was about to take a sip of my coffee, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw the name Sarah Mitchell flashing. Sarah was the event coordinator for Elegant Events, one of the top event planning companies in town. She handled all of my family's events, and I had always trusted her to get things done. "Hello," I answered, trying to sound more engaged than I felt. "Emma, I don't know how to say this, but..." Sarah's voice wavered. Something in her tone immediately put me on edge. "Sarah, what's going on?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "It's about the baby shower." "For Jennifer," she said, and I felt a sudden knot form in my stomach. "It's been planned without you, and they don't want you involved anymore?" I blinked, trying to process the words. "What do you mean they don't want me involved? This is for my sister, right?" "Well, yes, but the family, they've decided they want to go in a different direction, and..." Her words trailed off. I could hear the nervousness in her voice. It was clear this was an uncomfortable situation for her. "Wait, they want to exclude me?" My voice was steady, but inside, I could feel the heat rising. "How is that possible? What do you mean by different direction?" "Well," Sarah stammered, "they've decided to keep the $30,000 deposit you made for the event. They said you didn't need to be part of it anymore. They're going to make it an intimate event, just family, no business involvement." A cold, icy wave of realization washed over me. "You're telling me that after all I've done for Jennifer, after all the money I've put into this family, they just decided to cut me out?" "Emma, she started, but I cut her off. "Sarah," I said, my voice cold now, "let me be clear. I own the venues you booked for the shower. I own the restaurants. I own the catering. I own the space where the shower was supposed to be held. The event is canceled. Tell them I said so." There was a long pause on the other end. I could practically hear Sarah's thoughts scrambling as she tried to process what I had just said. "Wait, what? What do you mean? You're canceling the whole thing?" "Yes," I said, my tone firm. "I'm canceling the event. You need to inform my family that the shower is no longer happening. It's done. And I'll make sure they get their deposit back. Just let them know this is my decision and they need to work around me now." Sarah's voice dropped an octave, clearly shocked. "Emma, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," I replied, my voice calm. "Just tell them the event is off. No one, absolutely no one, gets to decide what happens with my family's events when I'm the one footing the bill." I hung up the phone before she could respond. I sat there for a moment, the weight of what I had just done settling in. Part of me wanted to feel bad, to feel some sense of remorse for pulling the rug out from under them, but I didn't. Not this time. I had spent years watching them dismiss me, belittle my career, and reduce me to nothing more than a bank account for their endless needs. Jennifer, my sister, was always the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And I was always the one they could rely on for money, for help, for everything, but never for respect. I wasn't going to let them use me anymore. Not now, not ever again. I had worked too hard to let them treat me like a convenience. As the minutes passed, my phone buzzed with messages from family members, no doubt trying to smooth things over. But I wasn't interested in hearing their apologies or excuses. They had made their choice, and now I was going to make mine. I had worked hard for everything I had. I had built something from nothing, and I wasn't going to let anyone, least of all my own family, undermine me anymore. This time, it wasn't just about money. It was about standing up for myself. The phone call ended, and I sat there for a moment staring at the empty screen. The sharp click of the call disconnecting echoed in my mind. There was a part of me that was stunned, shocked by the blatant disregard my family had for me. But at the same time, it was almost like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had known for a long time that this moment was inevitable, even if I hadn't fully admitted it to myself. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, letting the memories flood in. The memories of growing up, always feeling like the odd one out, always trying to prove myself to my family, but never quite fitting in. Jennifer, my sister, was always the golden child, the perfect one, the one who could do no wrong. I had been different from the start, While she was out with friends, going to galas, and attending fancy brunches, I was the one elbow deep in work, trying to figure out how to build a business. I had never been the social butterfly. My passion had always been business, creating something that could stand on its own. And I had done just that. I had built my empire from the ground up, starting with a small restaurant and turning it into a hospitality business worth millions. But instead of admiration, I had received pitying looks from my family. Comments like, "Why can't you be more like Jennifer? She has such a bright future ahead of her," always made my blood boil. I was successful, yes, but I wasn't the kind of success they recognized. To them, I wasn't someone to be proud of. I was the rough around the edges one, the one who didn't fit into their glossy world of appearances. It had always stung, but I had swallowed it, telling myself that one day they would see me for what I was, a successful entrepreneur who had worked tirelessly to build something meaningful. But instead of praise, all I ever got were backhanded compliments. My parents were too wrapped up in Jennifer's achievements to even notice mine. And now it was happening again. After everything I had done for them, after all the money I'd poured into their lives, they had turned their backs on me. The baby shower for Jennifer's child, which I had funded, had been taken out of my hands. I had been cut off, not because I had failed them, but because I didn't fit into their perfect, polished vision of what family was supposed to look like. I took a deep breath, my fingers brushing across the desk in front of me. I had been walking on eggshells for too long. They didn't see me for who I was. They saw me for what I could give them. It had always been like that. The guilt trips, the unspoken expectations, the way they casually assumed I would bail them out. They never respected me, not for my intelligence, not for my dedication, and certainly not for my success. But I was done with that. I wasn't going to allow their superficial judgments to control me anymore. If they couldn't see me for the woman I had become, then they didn't deserve any more of my help. For years, I had bent over backward for them. But this time was different. I wasn't going to let their cruelty slide. I was done being the person they could rely on without acknowledging me as an equal. I stood up, walking over to the window of my office. The view of the city spread out in front of me, a city I had built my business in. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. No more handouts. No more enabling their entitled behavior. They would have to learn to respect me. It wasn't long before my phone rang again. This time, the name flashing on the screen made my stomach drop. It was Jennifer. I took a deep breath before answering, steeling myself for whatever she was about to throw at me. "Emma!" she spat, her voice sharp with fury. "I can't believe you did this. How could you cancel everything? You're being so petty and childish right now." I didn't respond right away, letting her words hang in the air. Part of me wanted to snap back, to lash out. But I had learned over the years that silence often had more power than anything else. I let her rage on, her breath getting heavier as she continued her tirade. "You're acting like a child, Emma. This is about a party for my baby? For my future," she went on. "How can you do this? You're just throwing a tantrum because you didn't get invited to the party." I took another deep breath, then calmly cut her off. "You know, Jennifer, the fact that you're more upset about the party being canceled than the fact that I funded the entire thing is exactly why I did it. I paid for everything, Jennifer. Everything. The venue, the catering, the decorations, and yet you decided that I wasn't good enough to even be invited." She was silent for a moment, the sharpness in her voice giving way to a tone of disbelief. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, keeping my voice even. "I've been the one behind the scenes, making sure everything was perfect for you. But the second you needed something, it was about appearances. It wasn't about me as your sister. It was about the vibe of the event, and clearly, I didn't fit into that perfect picture of what you wanted for your big day." She let out a frustrated laugh, trying to play it off. "Come on, Emma. It wasn't like that. I just wanted something special for this event." "Special?" I asked. "Is that what you're calling it?" "You used my money, took it all for granted, and then decided I wasn't worth being at the event that I paid for. You've never treated me like family, Jennifer. You've always treated me like a convenience." "Stop!" she shouted, her voice cracking with frustration. "You don't understand. This isn't about you or your money. This is about the family. We need to be united, and you're making it worse." I held my ground, refusing to let her pull me back into her web of guilt. "No, Jennifer. You don't get to play the victim here. I've been there for you every step of the way. I've given you everything, and all I ever got was your dismissive attitude. Now you're trying to guilt me into backing down so you can continue using me. That's not how this works anymore." There was a long pause on the other end, the silence thick with unspoken words. When she finally spoke again, her voice was softer, almost pleading. Emma, please. Just let it go. I know I messed up. But can't we just move past this for the sake of the family? I could hear the desperation in her voice, the manipulation hidden beneath the surface. No, I said, my voice firm. I'm not going to keep being the one who sacrifices for a family that never truly sees me. You want forgiveness? Then you need to start respecting me. You need to acknowledge me as your sister, not just your ATM. I heard her let out a frustrated sigh. So that's it? You're just going to hold this over my head forever? No, I replied. I'm just setting boundaries. I'm done being the one who gives everything without getting anything in return. If you want to fix this, Jennifer, it's going to take more than just an apology. It's going to take real change. With that, I ended the call. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I had finally said what needed to be said. I had finally taken control of the situation. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was at the mercy of my family's expectations. The day after the call with Jennifer, I sat in my office, the silence almost suffocating as I stared at the glowing screen of my laptop. My phone buzzed with notifications, voicemails, texts, and missed calls, all from my family. I knew what they wanted. They wanted me to fix this, to back down and pretend like everything was fine. But this time, I wasn't going to give in. I scrolled through the messages, starting with the voicemails. The first was from my mother. Her voice was shaky, the words laced with confusion. Emma, sweetie, I don't understand. Why would you cancel everything? The shower is for Jennifer's baby. She's so upset. What happened? We need to talk. I rolled my eyes, feeling a knot of frustration tighten in my chest. The next one was from my father. His voice was gruff, and he got straight to the point. Emma, we need to have a family meeting. This has gone too far. Call me. We'll work this out. I didn't respond. Not yet. The final voicemail was from Jennifer. She sounded desperate, almost pleading. Emma, please, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this isn't about the money. I know you're upset, but please, for the sake of the family, can we talk? I'll make it right. Just, please, let's fix this. The words felt like a slap in the face. The family who had used me for years, who had always dismissed me and my hard work, were now acting like I was the one who had wronged them. They wanted me to just roll over and accept their treatment, to play my part as the bank account they could rely on without question. I deleted the voicemails without responding. They would have to learn that I was done. My patience had run out, and I wasn't going to let them continue to take advantage of me. Instead of dialing them back, I focused on something else. I grabbed the documents I had been putting together for weeks, something I had been planning, just in case the day came when I would need to expose just how deep my family's dependence on me ran. It was time they understood the full extent of how their lives were tied to my success. I pulled up the spreadsheets showing the total amount I had spent on them over the years. Family vacations, tuition payments, medical bills, and of course, the countless times I had bailed them out when their finances got tight. I hadn't kept track to make them feel guilty. I had done it out of love and obligation, never expecting anything in return. But now, it was different. Now, it was time for them to see the truth. I created a breakdown of every major financial contribution I had made to their lives in the past 5 years alone. I attached receipts and payment confirmations. Each dollar amounted to more than they probably realized. As I looked at the numbers, I felt a surge of empowerment. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about respect, something my family had never given me, despite everything I had done for them. They had used my success for their benefit, never acknowledging the work, the sacrifice, the countless hours I had poured into building something from nothing. I printed out the documents and slid them into an envelope, addressing it to Jennifer. It was time for her to understand. She needed to see how deeply intertwined her life and everyone else's was with mine. She needed to see how much of her success, her lifestyle had been funded by me. I didn't feel guilty about it. I didn't feel bad for making them face the truth. In fact, I felt relief. For once, I was taking control of the narrative. For once, I wasn't going to let them rewrite the story of my life as if I were just the one who provided, the one who gave, the one who never asked for anything in return. I sealed the envelope and took a deep breath, letting the weight of my decision sink in. I was done being their safety net. This time, they would have to stand on their own. As I prepared to send the documents, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my father. This needs to stop, Emma. We're your family. Can't you just help us out one more time? Let's not make a scene. I shook my head, turning the phone face down. There was no going back. I had made my decision, and this time it wasn't just about what they wanted, it was about what I needed. What I needed was respect, not just their expectations. The knock on my door was tentative, almost unsure, as if they didn't want to intrude but were desperate to be let in. I didn't need to check the peephole to know who it was. My parents. They had come to talk, but we both knew what they really wanted: to fix things, to convince me to let go of my decision, to smooth things over for Jennifer's sake. I opened the door, finding my father standing behind my mother, both of them looking uneasy. My mother, who had always been the emotional one, glanced up at me with concern. "Sweetheart, we need to talk," she said softly, her voice tinged with the faintest hint of guilt. "Yeah, I figured," I replied, stepping aside to let them in. They filed in, both of them looking like they'd just stepped out of a 1950s sitcom, well put together, stiff, as though they were still trying to maintain an illusion of normalcy. My father, in his usual gray suit, took a seat on the couch without saying a word, while my mother hovered near the doorway. "I don't understand, Emma," my mother started, her voice tight. "Why would you do something like this? It's a baby shower, for heaven's sake. You're not a child anymore. You should be celebrating this with us, not tearing the family apart." I exhaled slowly. "You want to talk about tearing the family apart? You should be asking Jennifer about that. She's the one who decided to exclude me after all I've done." My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing between my mother and me. "Look, Emma, we understand you're upset, but we really think you've made this a bigger issue than it needs to be. It's just a party. Can't you just let it go?" "A party?" I repeated, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "This isn't just a party, Dad. This is about me, about how you and Jennifer have treated me my entire life. You've always taken my help for granted, used me when it suited you, and now you expect me to just roll over because you're uncomfortable with me setting boundaries." My mother looked taken aback, but it was my father who spoke next, his voice gruff and defensive. "You're acting like we've never been there for you, Emma. We've supported you in our own way, but this is about Jennifer, and she's upset." "That's the problem," I said, standing up and crossing the room to get the folder I had prepared earlier. "You're all so focused on Jennifer's feelings, but what about mine? You only care about her perfect little world, and you want me to be a part of it, on their terms. Well, I'm done with that." I dropped the folder onto the coffee table in front of them. The loud thud of it landing was like a punctuation mark to my words. "Take a look," I said coldly. "Everything I've spent on this family, everything I've put into making your lives comfortable without ever getting a single thank you." My father frowned as he flipped through the pages, each one filled with financial records, receipts, and transfers, payments for vacations, tuition, medical bills, and even their luxury purchases. The total was staggering, a number that should have made them see just how much I had given up, how much of myself I had sacrificed. "You've spent thousands, Emma," my father said, his voice trailing off as the reality of what I had done for them started to settle in. "Thousands?" I repeated, "number that's just the last 5 years. That's not even counting the rest of it. How much more do you need to see before you realize how much I've been taken for granted?" My mother's eyes watered as she glanced at the papers, but she quickly wiped them away. "Sweetheart, we never meant for you to feel like this. You've always been so generous." "Generous?" I asked, my voice growing sharper. "Generous is not being expected to pay for everything while being treated like I'm not even part of the family. Generous is not always being the one who fixes everyone else's mistakes without even a thank you in return. I've been your safety net, your ATM, your fixer. But I'm done. I'm done being used and overlooked." I paused, letting the words sink in. "I'm not your fallback anymore. If you want me in your life, you're going to have to see me for who I am, not just for what I can give you." My father sat in stunned silence. My mother opened her mouth as if to speak, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "Number, I'm done. I've spent my life trying to please all of you. I've worked myself to the bone for this family, and you've never respected me for it. You've used me and treated me like a lesser person because I don't fit into your perfect mold." I took a step back, eyes locked on them both. "So here's the deal. I've set boundaries now, and you're going to respect them. If you don't, we won't have a relationship anymore. Not a business transaction. Not a one-sided relationship where I'm constantly giving and you're taking." I turned to walk away, but before I reached the door, my father's voice stopped me. "Emma." He sighed heavily. I guess we failed you in some ways. I never realized how much you've done for us, how much you've been carrying. We've taken you for granted. His words hung in the air. But I wasn't ready to forgive yet. Not today. It's going to take more than an apology, I said softly. But I'm willing to listen if you're ready to change. But that change has to come from all of you. With that, I walked out of the room, leaving them in stunned silence. I had finally said everything I needed to say. And now, for the first time, I felt like I was truly in control of my own life. The phone rang, and I hesitated for a moment before picking it up. I had been bracing myself for more of the same, more guilt-tripping, more pleading. But when I saw the name David Mitchell flash across the screen, I paused. David, Jennifer's husband, wasn't like the rest of my family. If anything, he seemed more grounded, more level-headed. Maybe he could see things from a different perspective. I answered, the tone of my voice steady. David. Emma, he said, his voice carrying a mix of frustration and curiosity. I've been trying to make sense of this, and I really think we need to talk. Jennifer, she's devastated about what happened with the shower. I don't get it. I thought everything was fine between you two. What's going on? I leaned back in my chair, my fingers lightly tapping the edge of my desk. It's not about the baby shower, David. It's about something much deeper than that. It's about the way I've been treated by this family for years. There was a brief silence on the other end. I don't understand, he said, his voice tinged with genuine confusion. I know you've done a lot for Jennifer and for all of us. But this? It feels like you're overreacting. It's just a baby shower. I couldn't help but laugh, short and bitter. Just a baby shower, I echoed. Do you really think that's what this is about? This isn't about a party or a shower. It's about being used and not being acknowledged for everything I've given David. Jennifer and the rest of my family have always taken me for granted, always expected me to help without ever showing any real gratitude. And when I set a boundary, suddenly I'm the villain. David sighed, his frustration clear. Emma, I get that you feel taken for granted, but can we be real for a minute? Jennifer was trying to do something nice, something special for her baby. We didn't mean for it to blow up like this. That's the problem, I said, my voice growing firmer. You all act like everything's fine when I'm doing the heavy lifting. I've funded your lives, your dreams, your plans, and I've never gotten a single ounce of respect in return. You think it's just about money, don't you? But it's not. It's about being treated like an equal, like a person, not just an ATM. David was silent for a moment, processing what I had said. I could hear the gears turning in his head. I didn't realize it was this bad, he admitted quietly. I didn't know the extent of what you've been doing for everyone. I always just assumed it was because you could afford it. I guess I was blind to it. That's the thing, I continued, my voice softer now. Everyone has been blind to it. You've all seen me as someone who can help, but never as someone who deserves to be treated with respect. I'm tired of it. And I'm not going to let this family keep using me for their own convenience. There was a long pause before David spoke again, his tone shifting. So, what are you asking for, Emma? What do you want from me? I leaned forward, the weight of the conversation settling on my shoulders. I'm not asking for anything from you, David. I'm asking you to make Jennifer see the truth. She's the one who needs to realize that this isn't about a party. It's about her treating me like her sister, not just her financial backer. I've done enough for this family. If they want a relationship with me, it's going to have to be based on something more than what I can give them. David was quiet for a moment, the silence between us heavy. I understand, he said finally, and I'll talk to Jennifer. I'll make sure she knows where I stand on this. But Emma, please, try to give us a chance to make things right. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I will, but Jennifer has to take responsibility for her part in this. Until she does, I'm not going to play the part of the family's cash cow anymore. I ended the call shortly after that, feeling a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. For the first time, someone in my family, someone outside of my immediate circle, had actually acknowledged the extent of what I'd been doing. And maybe, just maybe, David could be the bridge to helping Jennifer realize how much she had taken me for granted. But as I sat there in my office, I knew I had made my stance clear. No more games, no more being used. If they wanted me in their lives, they would have to show me the respect I had been denying myself for so long. The day after the tense conversation with David, I sat in my apartment staring out the window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the city, and I felt oddly at peace. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking on eggshells, trying to please everyone else. I had taken control of my life, my family, and I wasn't about to let them continue to walk all over me. But it wasn't just about putting my foot down with my family, it was about moving forward in a way that didn't diminish who I was anymore. I had spent too many years catering to their expectations, bending to their will, thinking that I could buy their love and respect. It never worked. Now I had to do the hard work, build relationships on my terms, with boundaries that were no longer negotiable. I hadn't spoken to Jennifer since our confrontation. The silence was heavy between us, and I knew she was hurt, but I also knew she was beginning to realize what had been happening for years. She had used me, and now I was no longer willing to be her safety net, her backup plan. But even though she had excluded me from the baby shower, I still wanted to be involved in my nephew's life. So I took action. I arranged a set of personal services for her baby, things that would show I was still invested in him, even if she and I weren't in the best place. A full day of childcare services, a monthly delivery of organic baby products, and even a set of personalized baby books for her son. I made sure to let Jennifer know that despite everything, I still wanted to be a part of the baby's life. The message I sent was brief but direct. Jennifer, I've arranged some services for the baby, and I hope you'll allow me to be involved in his life in a meaningful way. Even though things are strained between us, I want him to know that I'm here for him, no matter what. A part of me hoped she would understand the gesture for what it was, a genuine offer to show love and care for her child, despite the rift between us. But another part of me knew she had to process everything in her own time. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. Jennifer had replied. I opened the message with a sense of trepidation, unsure of what I would find. Emma, I'm sorry. I've been selfish, I've treated you terribly, and I've taken you for granted. I was wrong, and I see that now. You've always been there for me, and I haven't appreciated it. I'm sorry. The apology wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the years of hurt, but it was a start. It was the first time Jennifer had ever truly acknowledged how she treated me. But I knew this wasn't a magic fix. Words were just words. The real work would come from how we rebuilt our relationship moving forward. She couldn't just apologize and expect everything to go back to the way it was. There were terms that needed to be set, and I needed to be clear about what I would and would not accept. I took a moment, then typed out my response, making sure to convey everything I needed to say without leaving room for misunderstanding. I accept your apology, Jennifer, but I need you to understand something. Our relationship can't just be about what I can do for you. It needs to be based on real love and respect, not on money or appearances. I've been there for you countless times without hesitation, but this time, things need to be different. If you want me in your life, it needs to be for who I am, not for what I can give. I'll always be there for my nephew, but I need you to show me that you value me for more than just what I can provide. I hit send and sat back, the weight of my words sinking in. For the first time, I felt like I was making my boundaries clear, not just to Jennifer, but to myself. I wasn't doing this for them anymore. I was doing this for me, and maybe, just maybe, this was the first step towards something better, something real. The next few days passed in silence. I didn't hear from Jennifer right away, but I wasn't expecting to. Change takes time, but I knew this. I had taken the first step, and I was no longer afraid to stand up for myself. Whatever happened next, I was ready to face it. The doorbell rang just as I was settling into my evening routine. My apartment was quiet, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, casting a soft glow across the living room. I wasn't expecting anyone, but a quick glance at the clock confirmed it was just past 6. Exactly when I figured my parents would show up. Despite everything, I hadn't been able to avoid the inevitable confrontation. I stood up slowly, my heart thudding in my chest as I walked to the door. When I opened it, I found my mother standing there, looking hesitant, as if unsure whether she had permission to enter this space of mine. My father stood behind her, his face drawn and weary. They were trying to make themselves look presentable, as always, but there was something different about them today. It was a subtle shift, an air of discomfort, like they knew they couldn't hide behind their usual indifference anymore. Emma, my mother said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk. I stepped aside to let them in. Yeah, I figured. I had been expecting this after all. There was no way they would let things go without trying to fix them. We all settled in the living room, the tension in the air so thick I could almost taste it. My father, ever the silent observer, cleared his throat. We're sorry, Emma, he said, the words coming slowly. We didn't understand how much you've been carrying. We failed you, and I can see that now. My mother nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. We didn't realize how much we've taken from you, how much we've relied on you. I'm sorry, sweetheart. We've been wrong. The words were difficult for her, I could tell. For years, they'd treated me like I was nothing more than a source of money, a backup plan when things got tough. And now, for the first time, they were acknowledging it. But it didn't change the fact that they had never truly seen me, until I made them. I folded my arms across my chest, my gaze fixed firmly on them. It's not enough, I said quietly. I don't need apologies. What I need is respect. I've given everything I have for this family, and yet all you've ever done is treat me like I'm nothing more than a tool to make your lives easier. My father flinched, but my mother held my gaze. We know, Emma, she whispered, but we're ready to change. We understand now. I shook my head. Number, you can't just say you're ready to change and expect everything to go back to normal. I've been carrying this family for years. And not once, not a single time, did you ever show me that you saw me as something more than your bank account. The years of backhanded comments, the condescending remarks, it all built up. And now, you want me to just forgive you? It doesn't work like that. My father looked down, unable to meet my eyes. You're right, Emma. We've been living off your success and acting like you owe us. But we were wrong. I can see that now. And I'm sorry. You're sorry, I repeated, my voice cold. But that doesn't fix anything. What I need from you is a shift, a real change. You can't just come here and expect me to forgive everything, to let you back in just because you say sorry. You've treated me like a commodity, like an object you could control, and I'm done being that for you. There was a long silence, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had the upper hand. My parents, usually the ones in control, were sitting there, acknowledging the truth I had always known, but had never dared to speak aloud. I stood up, grabbing the folder I had prepared earlier, the one with all the financial records, the ones I'd been keeping for a moment like this. Here, I said, handing it to them. This is everything I've done for you. The money I've spent, the sacrifices I've made. You can look at it, and then maybe you'll understand why I'm no longer willing to be treated like this. My father opened the folder slowly, flipping through the pages, his face hardening with every number, every figure. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally closed it, he looked at me with a mixture of shame and realization. We didn't know it was this bad, he said quietly. I nodded. I know you didn't, but now you do. My mother reached out to me, her hand trembling. We've been blind, Emma, but we're ready to make it right. We want to be a family again. I paused before answering, the weight of the conversation settling deep within me. I'm willing to work on it, but it's going to take time. Respect doesn't happen overnight. And if you want to rebuild anything with me, you're going to have to prove it. No more excuses, no more using me as a safety net. I looked at them both, the silence stretching between us like a chasm, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they were starting to see me for who I really was. The days after our confrontation were filled with tension. I could feel the rift widening, the silence heavier than ever. Jennifer had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. But now, as the weight of her actions settled on her, I was starting to see cracks in her perfect facade. I was busy with work, managing the various aspects of my business, when my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Jennifer. I hadn't expected this. After our last conversation, I figured she would retreat further into her pride, leaving me to stew in my own frustration. I opened the message, and the words hit me harder than I expected. Emma, I'm so sorry. I've been a horrible sister. I've always taken you for granted, and I've used you for so long. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to try. I was wrong to treat you the way I did. Please, can we talk? The apology was raw, heartfelt, and long overdue. I sat there for a moment, rereading it, the weight of her words sinking in. This was the first time in years that Jennifer had acknowledged her part in this. The first time she had admitted her selfishness, her disregard for me. I didn't immediately respond. Part of me wanted to soften, to hear her out and let her off the hook, but I couldn't, not after everything. Not after years of being ignored and used. I had spent my entire life being there for her, caring for her, supporting her, giving her everything she needed, even when it drained me. I wasn't about to let her apology be the quick fix she was hoping for. Instead, I took a deep breath and wrote my response, steady and firm. I hear you, Jennifer, and I appreciate that you're acknowledging the truth. but it's not enough to just say sorry. It's going to take time for me to rebuild my trust in you and for us to rebuild our relationship. I'm not the person you can just call on when it's convenient for you. I'm not here to be your safety net anymore. You've hurt me deeply, and that's going to take work to fix. I paused before I sent it. This was my chance to set the tone for how I would be treated going forward. No more pretending, no more being the fallback option when things got tough. If Jennifer wanted to make things right, she was going to have to show me, not just tell me. When I pressed send, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't the reconciliation I had once imagined, but it was honest. It was real. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Jennifer had replied almost immediately. I understand. I know I've messed up, but I need you to know that I truly regret how I've treated you. I want to make it up to you. I want us to have a real relationship, not just based on what you can do for me. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Please let me prove it to you. Her words were full of emotion, and I could feel the sincerity in them. But as I read the text, I knew this wasn't a simple fix. She had to do more than just apologize. She had to show me, with consistent actions, that she could value me as a person, not just as a source of support. I wasn't sure what the future would hold for us. I wasn't sure if she could change, if she could truly respect the boundaries I was setting. But for the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something different. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a real, honest relationship between us, one built on love and respect, not just obligation and convenience. As I set my phone down, I thought about the future. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let anyone dictate the terms of my worth anymore. I was in control of my own story now, and that was a feeling I could hold on to. The day of my nephew's christening arrived, and as I stood in front of the church, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a family event. It was the culmination of everything I'd been through. Everything had led to this moment, and I wasn't just attending the christening as a formality or out of obligation. I was there because I genuinely wanted to be. For the first time in years, it felt like I was finally being seen, not for the things I could do for my family, but for who I truly was. I walked into the church, my eyes scanning the room. Jennifer was standing at the front with her husband, David, and their little one in her arms. Her smile, a little more genuine than before, met mine as I made my way toward her. The distance between us had shrunk, but I knew it was still fragile, still new. Hey, Jennifer said softly as I approached. Her voice was different now, softer, more sincere. Hey, I replied, my lips curling into a small smile. We stood there for a moment, the weight of the past still lingering but no longer suffocating us. The ceremony began, and for the first time, I felt like I was present in the moment. I had been so caught up in the drama and the hurt that I had forgotten the importance of what was really happening. My nephew, my sister's child, was being baptized, and I was there to witness it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to be a part of his life. I wasn't going to let old wounds stop me from being the family member I knew I could be. As the ceremony went on, I kept my focus on the little boy, this tiny life who would grow up, who would one day understand the world in a way I couldn't quite grasp yet. I realized that, despite all the tension, despite the years of frustration, this was my family. And even though the past couldn't be undone, I could still be there for him. I could still show up. After the christening, we gathered for a small reception at a nearby hall. It wasn't extravagant. In fact, it felt intimate, something I hadn't realized I needed until I walked into that room. It was family, all of us, without the pretense or the showiness that had always seemed to follow my sister and me around. Jennifer pulled me aside as we were heading toward the refreshment table. Her face was flushed, and she had an almost hesitant look in her eyes. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Emma. About us, about how I've treated you, she began. I know I've used you in the past, and I can't change that, but I want to. I want to be better. I don't want you to feel like you're just there when you're needed, or like you're some tool to make things happen. I looked at her, studying her expression. This wasn't the Jennifer I knew, the one who always had it together, always seemed like the favorite. This was a new side of her, one that, in a way, made me feel hopeful. She was finally starting to see me for who I was, not just what I could offer. I don't want to be the one who fixes everything anymore, Jen, I said, my voice steady but calm. I'm done being the family's backup plan, but I'm here. I'm here for you and for the baby. Just don't expect me to keep sacrificing myself for everyone else's comfort. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I understand. And I'm sorry. I've been selfish, and I'll make it right. For real. This time. In that moment, I felt a shift. It wasn't complete healing. It wasn't the end of all the hurt, but it was the beginning of something new, a chance for us to rebuild, not based on what I could do for her, but because we were sisters, because I mattered to her beyond the things I could provide. As the night went on, I saw more than just the surface. I saw Jennifer and David making an effort to include me, to make me feel like I belonged, not because I was needed, but because I was family. And as I watched them interact with me, I realized how much they had changed, how much we all had changed in that moment. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about real relationships. By the end of the night, my nephew was asleep in his stroller, and the church hall was quieting down. Jennifer pulled me into a hug before I left, the kind of hug that made me realize how much we had both needed this, to rebuild something real. Can you do me one last favor? She asked, pulling back slightly. I raised an eyebrow, confused. Anything, I said. Will you be the godmother? She asked softly, her eyes full of sincerity. For him. For my son. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just a gesture, it was a real reconciliation, an acknowledgement that, despite everything, she wanted me to be part of her child's life in a meaningful way. Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'd love to. As I left the reception that evening, the weight I had been carrying for so long seemed lighter. My family was still my family, with all its flaws and misunderstandings. But for the first time, I could see the possibility of something deeper, a real connection, built on respect and love, not on expectations or financial transactions. True success, I realized, wasn't about how much I had built in my career. It was about these moments, the ones where I was finally seen, finally understood as a person, not a resource. And for the first time in a long while, I felt that my relationships were moving towards something deeper, more authentic. It was a start, and that was enough for now.